Welcome everyone, my name is Tawess and this is a guillotine. Today we are painting the Ghost Regiments, or at least the first Ghost Regiment. These are the Yakuza low-born companies put together by Theodore Kurita, I think it was. Yeah. Now, their standout feature is the fact that they have tattoos on their mechs. Or well, perhaps not tattoos as such, but they have paint that resembles Yakuza tattoos. I know, it's a thing. We have to live with it. The first ones have green dragon skin. It's going from the left side to the right side. So that's what we have, the green stuff there. Because the rest of the mech is bright white. Or it is a pale grey. So pale it is almost white. Very poetic. Now you might wonder why I'm painting it grey with the same grey tone that the mech was grey. That's because it's got a good base coat. This mech did not like to exist without a base coat. So it got a base coat. Then it got a proper slathering of null oil. And I put this on before the paint was entirely dry because I wanted to so blend into the paint, make a weird amalgamation of, well, ink and paint. I don't know what to say about it. Anyway, it was intentional. It looks weird, but it's intentional. It becomes... It's a bit like using speed paint in a way, but at the same time not. I liked it for this one because I wanted a solid covering, basically. So, it also took ages for it to dry. Like ages. Properly ages. Now, painting pale grey white, you usually start with a good solid grey. In this case, I think I went for Gorgon Hide. I can check. But yeah, Gorgon Hide. Because Gorgon Hide was going to be my main carrier of this. Because Gorgon Hide is a nice bluish grey. It's very white, but it's not white enough to be white. And I mixed that in with some Dungeon Grey, I think it was. I should know these things, but anyway, it's a darkish bluish grey, but it's not a dark blue grey. And you can use whatever paint you want. I'm using the old Armor Painter paints. I could not recommend using those once the Fanatics comes out, because the Fanatics, for all intents and purposes, it seems will be better. But anyway, this stage, slop it on. Don't need to be all that careful. We're going to do the details later. A good 50-50 mix should be brighter than the base, but still not bright. Slather it on. Try to avoid getting it into all the crevices, but basically slather it on. And I know it looks very bright on the camera, because but there's a lot of light there, and it looks very bright. White also looks very bright on the camera. But yeah, once that is done, grab your favorite small fine brush. I'm usually not one who cares much about brushes, but in this case we're going to be using a technique that requires a fine brush. Yeah, as you can see now, it is a lot less bright. And then we just start doing small, tiny strokes. Tiny strokes. Because the idea here is to apply a scratchy effect, because I want this mech to look like it's been through hell. And doing these short strokes makes it scratchier. It gives you way more control, and it gives it a slightly organic feeling, which is really nice. And again, as always, keep your paint fairly moist. You need to be able to work with it easily, but it shouldn't be too moist. It shouldn't be runny. It needs to be somewhere between moist and runny. Helpful, isn't it? But yeah. Basically, the idea is now to pick out the places where light hits, avoiding the crevices, panel lines, the spaces between armor plates, places where lights wouldn't actually get all that much. We're going to go over it one more time later on, but for now, make sure to hit those things. And using small, tiny strokes on a small, tiny mech with a small, tiny brush, it's the way to do it. In my mind, at least. You don't have to follow my mind, but in my mind, that is the way you do it. Now, why are we doing this? Well, because I haven't done much Kurita mechs. And it's one of the more interesting Kurita designs. And there's like 10 of them, so you could go through all 10 of them, because every single one of them, every single regiment has their own tattoo design. I think the second one is the wave. One uses a chain, some uses sunrise, some uses clouds, some uses birds. Some uses some weird thing, I don't really know what it was, hard to see. But yeah, there's like 10 different designs. It's kind of interesting. Now, that of course is not something I'm intentionally going to do, but also I'm not entirely sure if a Kurita company ever actually had access to a guillotine, but that's another thing. I don't necessarily play by the lists. The lists make me nervous in both feet because there's a lot of mechs in those lists. And it just felt good. It happened to sit on a desk, so I took that one. If you're a lore purist, you do you. I fully admire your dedication to the whole thing. But seeing how I'm mostly a Wrestlehagian myself, you don't have that great access to mechs. Anyway, short strokes. All the way up the mech. Takes forever. But it looks great. It looks tasty. Unless you get pretty close to the mech. Then it doesn't look tasty anymore, it looks weird. But yeah. As you can see, we have now applied to most of the mech the same hatchy style. Not hatchy as hatchy the person, but hatchy as in hatching. Hash marks. Cross hatching. Small lines. It's a lot of weird shit. So, basically, we now go over the same places again with pure Gorgon hide and just lift them up. And then the idea now is to pick out the central areas where the light actually hits. You're not going to be able to see the difference on the mech in the video, unfortunately, because it simply did not agree with me when it came to picking up the white. But trust me, you can see a difference when you actually look at the mech. Basically, you build up the light in the areas where the light hits, making sure that things look sharper, crispier, and almost crunchy. Crunchy mechs are really good. Now, of course, this mech, as I said, does look like it's been through a lot. The lines are dark. I could even add some weathering if I wanted to, but I always find it hard to add weathering to machines this big at such a small scale. It just looks weird to me. Lack of skill, not lack of thing. It can absolutely be done, but I can't do it. I can't make it look good. It looks artificial. It's like... Also, by the way, this is a jumping guillotine, if you haven't noticed. It keeps popping off the plate, because I don't want to leave it down, because sometimes I might use the jumping effect. Anyway, it is nice. It's fun. I like it. Now, one of the things, of course, to keep in mind when you do this is that there is no set way to do it. You don't have to do it the way I do it. You can do a dozen different ways and get the same result. I just happen to like this way because it gives me the type of control that I need. And now, some peel away pleasure. It's time to take off the masking liquid. Basically, the masking liquid is latex, brush on latex, with this like water dissolvent part in it. So until it's dry, you can actually dissolve it in water. It's nice. I mean, you don't have to sacrifice the brush you're using. You can just wipe it off and then rinse it in water. So just peel it away. Why did I do it this way? Well, because I wanted a clean, solid area to get the whole green onto. Now, up here is a mix of Abaddon Black and Angel Green, which is basically Caliban Green, I think you used to call it if you use Games Workshop paint. It's a very dark foresty green, at least. Mix these two together, 50-50 rate, to get a dark green. Let's get a good base. Also, the Abaddon Black is a Games Workshop base paint, so it actually gives you a bit more bite, which is nice. Because it's something that the old Army Painter paints aren't good at. It's being applied straight over grey. They don't like that at all, unfortunately. So, with that done, take some pure Angel Green, or Canada Green, or whatever nice foresty green you have. And you do the same technique as with the white. Short strokes, picking up the areas where the light would hit. bringing it up. And here it's important to not go too bright. It could be tempting to start doing highlights and stuff, but I would not recommend doing that because we're going to put scales on this. And then we're going to shade the scales. So yeah, basically, just go over the entire thing, and then here goes the scales. Goblin green, or similar bright green. Dip a chunky amount of paint on a brush and dab it on. Not necessarily paint, you can also paint if you have really steady hand you can paint on, but if you don't have steady hands like me, just dab it on. Get a nice dab if you want it. And just continue to do that all the way up. Dab on, next row, dab on. Keep the brush loaded. You need a lot of paint for this. Also, really important to make it sure it dries properly in between times, because if you start messing with it when it's dry, you're gonna have to paint it all over again and start from scratch. So yeah, then mix in some brighter green. I think I used a very limeish green, and go over them again. Dab in, and try to leave a bit of the old paint at the top so you can get a nice fade. But yeah, be careful here. Try to get a nice fade effect. Just add the bright to the bottom. Flip to make a round when you go on the other side, and then increase the amount of greenish yellow until you have a nice faded effect. Also important here is I let it dry properly, because paint changes quality while it dries, so it can be sometimes hard to see how much you actually have to do. So let it dry properly, don't rush it, go over it again and make sure you get a nice fade. Now, of course, one of the things we have to do here is resist the temptation to wash it. You could do it. I didn't dare to, because I muted it. Now for the cockpit, I just used the same technique basically. Started off with the angel green and then worked up through the same paints I used for the dragon scales. You can't see it because it makes off camera, but yeah, basically that was what I did. Just blended it in, wet blended it carefully, made sure it looked good. Added some darker green if it got too bright. Push the points around a bit. Make sure you got a nice fade with a sharp, very bright tip. Then silver the weapons, silver the feet as usual. I couldn't really decide if the thing in the middle of the stomach is a SRM 6 or if it is something else. I decided it was an SRM 6. I didn't look that up, but I decided it was SRM 6. So now it's an SRM 6. You don't have to make an SRM 6. You could technically just paint it over. But yeah, that is what it is. Then I wrap it up with painting a little corrida symbol and slather on some nice shading. And that's the make. Not too difficult. But you know, enjoy the pretties, and until next time, stay safe, be kind, and do play fair. Bye.